When Adams became president, he knew that he was fighting an uphill battle with George Washington being the first president, being such a well loved leader and admired general of the war. He was pretty much everyone's perfect president in a sense. And so, coming after that, Adams really didn't have much of a chance to try and win the American people over. Next to the fact that Adams himself, in comparison to character, was not really as well liked as George Washington. He was always very quiet and reserved, and a lot of people just didn't really like him. He just had kind of a cold manner around him. But as president, his main goal was really to try and improve the United States. And one of the first things that he really wanted to do was try to improve the relationship with France, which had been strained ever since the war after the Revolution in France between Britain and France. So he sent Charles Pinckney, who had already done such a great job in establishing the treaty with Spain, Elbridge Gerry, and John Marshall to France in order to negotiate a new treaty with France to help protect U.S. shipping. The French foreign minister at that time was Talleyrand, and he was in charge of meeting with the American ambassadors and trying to negotiate this new agreement. However, when they got there, he refused to meet with them, and instead, three French agents showed up secretly later on that night, demanding a bribe in order to meet with Talleyrand before discussing any type of treaty. So Pinckney, Gerry, and Marshall were outraged at such an offer, and they left France and came back to the United States to tell Adams exactly what had gone on. Adams was furious, referring to this whole entire ideal or ordeal itself and referring to the agents not by name as just agents X, Y, and Z. And he urged Congress to prepare for war, as this was something that could not have been accepted from another country in order to try and bribe them in order to try to negotiate a treaty. So this so-called XYZ affair, is what it became known, outraged the American people, and it really led to a call for war with France. The Americans were in full support of gaining war for France if that came to it. So their slogan became they would pay millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute. Right? Meaning that they would be willing to have taxes and pay millions of dollars to increase their defense and increase their weaponry and navy, but they wouldn't spend any money or give any money in order to pay off a bribe to another country. So these preparations for war that were passed in Congress actually expanded the Navy to a fleet of more than 30 ships, which was extremely large in comparison to the small number of ships that the United States had initially. It also created a peacetime army, and Adams did not really want to go to war with France. And he really wanted to reopen negotiations with France. He wanted to prepare for war. He wanted to prepare for the worst, but he really hoped that it would not come to war because that definitely would mean a lot more cost to the United States. But with the increase of the Navy to its large fleet, Adams is always known as the father of the Navy in that sense. So instead, efforts were made to try and create peace between the U.S. and France. Federalists were stunned that Adams decided not to go to war, and French and American ships actually began to engage one another in the Caribbean. And so Adams sent a representative to try and stop France from fighting. The U.S. and France would eventually sign a treaty that would end the conflict between the two, but it really left a bitter taste in the mouths of the Americans who were supportive of the war and were supportive of the United States not backing down. So it really kind of decreased the popularity of Adams as president.